The small music hall was buzzing with quiet excitement as people found their seats. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting warm patterns across the wooden floor. It was the kind of place where people came not just to listen, but to feel the music deep inside. Today, a famous pianist was performing. His reputation had traveled far, and the room seemed to hum with anticipation even before the first note was played. In the back of the hall, near a plain wooden bench, a woman sat quietly. She was simple in appearance, wearing a modest dress and holding a small notebook she sometimes used for sketches. She wasn't someone who drew attention to herself, and she often preferred watching from a distance. Music had always been part of her life, but only in her private moments. She had never performed in front of anyone. Today, however, curiosity had drawn her here. She wanted to hear the pianist play, to witness the skill that so many spoke of with awe. The lights dimmed slightly, and the pianist walked onto the stage. His presence was calm but confident, like someone who belonged entirely to the music. He nodded to the audience, smiled faintly, and took his seat at the grand piano that gleamed under the soft lights. The audience fell silent, and for a moment, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Then he began to play. The music started softly, almost like a whisper, weaving through the air with grace and precision. Each note seemed to float, carrying emotions that were hard to describe. The woman found herself leaning forward, her eyes wide, her heart beating a little faster with each chord. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over her, feeling a strange connection she hadn't expected. The music was beautiful, but it also felt personal, as if it knew parts of her she had kept hidden. As the performance continued, a few playful, lighter notes appeared in the melody. The pianist occasionally glanced at the audience with a twinkle in his eye, as if inviting them to share a joke only he knew. The woman noticed this, a smile creeping onto her face. There was a warmth in his performance, a sense that he was enjoying himself just as much as the audience was. The music was powerful, but it also carried a sense of fun, an unexpected playfulness that made everyone feel connected. Halfway through the performance, the pianist paused, letting a soft chord linger in the air. The audience held their breath, unsure if it was part of the piece or a brief break. Then, he looked directly toward the back of the hall, his gaze resting on the woman who had been watching quietly. She felt a sudden flutter in her stomach, as if the spotlight had found her without warning. He smiled gently and, in a joking tone that reached across the room, said something that made the audience laugh softly. He gestured toward the piano keys, a mischievous look in his eyes. He dared the woman to play just for fun, as if it were a small game. The room reacted with a mixture of laughter and surprise. Some whispered to each other, thinking it must be a joke, while others leaned forward, curious to see what would happen. The woman froze for a moment, unsure if he was serious. Her mind raced, thinking about the crowd, the piano, and her own lack of public experience. But there was something about the challenge, something lighthearted and encouraging in his expression, that made her heart beat with a strange mix of fear and excitement. She looked around at the audience. Some were smiling, some raising eyebrows in surprise, and some clapping lightly, as if urging her to do it. She could feel the warmth of their curiosity and encouragement. Slowly, a small smile appeared on her face. Maybe it was the playful energy of the pianist, or maybe it was the strange thrill of doing something unexpected, but she felt a spark of courage. She nodded slightly, signaling that she would accept the dare. The pianist's smile widened, clearly surprised but also delighted. The audience, sensing that something unusual was about to happen, grew quiet. The hall was filled with a new kind of tension, a mix of anticipation and excitement. People shifted in their seats, some whispering encouragement, some holding their breath, all waiting to see what the simple woman would do. She rose from her seat slowly, her steps measured but steady. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of the floor, but because of the attention focused on her. She approached the piano with a mix of nervousness and determination. Her hands trembled slightly, but there was a calmness in her eyes, a quiet resolve that seemed to surprise even herself. As she reached the piano, the pianist stood back slightly, giving her space but watching closely. He leaned against the side, curiosity shining in his eyes. He expected a hesitant, awkward attempt at best, perhaps a few random notes that would make everyone chuckle. But there was something in the woman's posture, the way she approached the piano, that hinted at hidden confidence. She seated herself, and for a moment, the hall was completely silent, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She placed her hands lightly on the keys, feeling the smooth surface under her fingers. Memories of times she had played alone, in the quiet of her room, came rushing back. She remembered the feeling of the keys, the sound of notes flowing together, the way music could express what words could not. Her heart beat fast, but her mind cleared. She remembered the joy of creating sound, the way each note connected to the next, and she let that memory guide her. Then, almost instinctively, she pressed the first keys. The sound was soft at first, tentative, but it carried a beauty that took the audience by surprise. People leaned forward, whispering among themselves, their laughter from before replaced by astonishment. The pianist stopped, his eyes widening slightly. He had expected an awkward attempt, but what he heard was something far more remarkable. The woman was playing with a skill and feeling that seemed natural and effortless, as if the music had always been part of her. As she continued, her confidence grew. Each note became stronger, more expressive. The room seemed to transform around her. The playful, joking challenge had turned into a moment of quiet awe. People watched in silence, captivated by the unexpected talent emerging in front of them. The pianist, usually the center of attention, took a step back, genuinely impressed. He had seen many perform, but this was different. This was raw, unpolished, yet beautiful in a way that touched everyone present. The woman's fingers danced across the keys, following an instinctive rhythm that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. She didn't play perfectly, but that didn't matter. Each note was filled with emotion, a story of someone who had loved music quietly, privately, for years. The audience felt it. They felt her joy, her courage, her unexpected brilliance. It was not just music. It was a connection, a bridge between her and everyone watching. By the time she finished the short piece, the hall was filled with quiet applause. It started softly, then grew louder as people realized what they had just witnessed. The pianist, smiling broadly now, nodded in admiration. The woman, breathing a little heavily, smiled back, a mix of relief and pride shining on her face. She had stepped out of her comfort zone, accepted a playful dare, and discovered something extraordinary about herself in the process. People began to talk quietly among themselves, amazed at what had just happened. Some were whispering about her hidden talent, others about the courage it took to step forward. The simple woman had surprised everyone, including herself, and in doing so, had created a moment that would be remembered by those in the hall for a long time. The pianist returned to his seat, nodding to her with respect, and the music hall seemed to hum with a quiet, shared excitement. It was a beginning, a first step into something new, and everyone could feel that something remarkable had just occurred. After the initial surprise and quiet applause, the woman stayed at the piano for a moment, her fingers lightly touching the keys as if testing the air. Her heartbeat was strong, echoing in her chest, but it was not fear this time. It was a mix of excitement, curiosity, and an unexpected surge of courage. The audience was silent, watching her every move, as though they sensed something special was about to happen next. She looked up at the pianist, who was seated a few steps back. His eyes were wide, filled with genuine surprise and admiration. He leaned slightly forward, resting his hands on the edge of the piano, clearly impressed. There was no teasing in his gaze now, only a quiet acknowledgement that she had stepped into a challenge and taken it seriously. The room seemed to pause, holding its breath, as if waiting for the next note, the next moment of magic. The woman took a deep breath, letting it flow slowly through her. She had always loved music, though she had never shared that love openly. Her fingers had known the piano before anyone else did, and in this moment, she felt a quiet connection to all the hours she had spent alone, practicing, imagining, and creating melodies in her own mind. That private world had suddenly become public, and while the thought was intimidating, it also filled her with a strange kind of joy. As she began to play again, the notes were careful at first, testing the space, the sound, and the energy of the audience. But with each passing measure, she grew bolder. Her fingers moved with more confidence, striking chords that resonated through the hall. She felt the music flowing from her heart, not just from her memory or practice, but from a place deep inside where emotion and thought were one. Each note seemed to carry a piece of her story, a story the audience had never known but could somehow feel. People in the room leaned forward, captivated. Some whispered to each other in disbelief, wondering how someone so ordinary-looking could produce such beautiful music. Others sat in stunned silence, their eyes wide, not wanting to miss a single moment. The energy in the hall shifted from playful curiosity to profound admiration. The simple dare had transformed into something entirely different, something that touched every person present in a way they hadn't expected. The pianist watched closely, unable to hide his amazement. He had faced many talented musicians in his career, but there was something raw and authentic about her playing. It was not polished in the way trained professionals often are, but it had soul. Each chord was filled with emotion, each pause a delicate breath of expression. He realized that this was not a performance for applause or recognition. It was a gift from someone sharing a piece of herself for the very first time. As she continued, the woman's confidence grew with every note. She allowed herself to explore, to add subtle variations and little flourishes she had never dared to try before. The piano seemed to respond to her touch, the sound carrying a warmth and depth that surprised even her. The audience could feel the story behind the music, a mix of quiet dreams, hidden talent, and newfound courage. They were no longer simply watching a woman play. They were witnessing a transformation. Some in the crowd exchanged glances, amazed that a casual, joking challenge could lead to such a profound moment. They whispered words of encouragement and astonishment, though the room remained quiet enough to let the music flow uninterrupted. It was a delicate balance, as though everyone had agreed silently to honor the moment, to let her discover her own voice without distraction. The woman's mind was fully present in the music. She was no longer thinking about the audience or the pianist. She was simply playing. Every memory of past melodies, every quiet practice session in her room, every moment she had imagined music in her heart came together now. She felt free, alive, and fully herself in a way she had never experienced in public. Her nervousness had melted into focus, and her focus had become joy. The pianist, now completely captivated, allowed a soft smile to spread across his face. He had hoped for a playful moment, maybe a few chuckled notes, but he had received something entirely unexpected. He began to hum softly along with her, not overpowering the music but adding a gentle harmony that encouraged her. It was as if he were saying, "I see you. Keep going." The encouragement, subtle yet powerful, strengthened her confidence even more. As she finished the piece she had been building toward, there was a brief silence. The notes lingered in the air, resonating not just in the hall, but in the hearts of everyone present. Then, slowly, the audience erupted into applause. It started softly, then grew louder, filling every corner of the room. Some clapped their hands to their hearts, others rose to their feet. The sound of admiration was warm and sincere, not forced or polite. She had surprised everyone, not just with her skill, but with the courage to step forward and share herself so openly. The pianist stood and walked over, offering a respectful nod. He spoke softly, enough for only her to hear, complimenting her instinct, her emotion, and the beauty she had brought to the piano. His words were genuine, and they carried a weight that made her smile with quiet pride. She had accepted a dare as a joke, but what she had found was a new part of herself, a hidden strength that had been waiting for the right moment to emerge. People continued to clap, some wiping tears from their eyes, others whispering words of admiration. The energy in the hall had changed. It was no longer a simple music event, but a shared experience of discovery, courage, and the unexpected beauty of talent hidden in plain sight. The woman, feeling both exhilarated and humbled, closed her eyes for a moment, letting the applause wash over her, and let herself simply breathe. In that moment, she realized something important. The world often waits for people to take chances, to step into the light despite fear or doubt. Her playful acceptance of a joke had become a turning point, showing that courage and curiosity could lead to moments of profound impact. She had never imagined that a simple dare could awaken something so powerful within her, but now she knew it was possible. As the audience began to settle back into their seats, the pianist returned to his bench, a look of deep respect on his face. He had seen countless performances, but this one had reminded him of the magic that could emerge when someone dared to step beyond what they thought was possible. The woman smiled quietly, her heart still racing but with a sense of calm satisfaction. She had faced the unexpected, embraced it, and discovered that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. The hall slowly emptied afterward, but the memory of what had happened lingered in the minds of everyone who had been there. People whispered to each other about the woman who had risen to the occasion, turning a light-hearted challenge into a moment of true inspiration. The woman herself walked out quietly, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and elation. She had entered the hall as an observer, but she left knowing she had shared something meaningful, not just with the audience, but with herself. It was the beginning of something new, a step into a world she had always admired from a distance but had never dared to join. That night, she realized that courage, even in the form of a small, playful dare, could open doors to experiences that were more beautiful than she had ever imagined. After the applause had settled and the audience's murmurs of admiration filled the room, the woman sat quietly at the piano. She could still feel her fingers tingling from the rush of performing, the energy of the hall still resonating in her chest. There was a moment of calm, but inside her, a storm of excitement and disbelief swirled. She had dared to take a simple challenge seriously and had discovered something she hadn't known about herself. The realization was both thrilling and humbling. The pianist, who had initially intended the dare as a playful joke, now stood to the side, watching intently. His curiosity was evident, and the subtle smile on his face had shifted to one of genuine admiration. He could see that this was no ordinary display of talent. There was a depth, an honesty in the way she played, something that could not be taught or faked. It was clear that music had been a part of her in a private, profound way, and today, it had finally found its voice. Encouraged by the pianist's presence and the audience's quiet attention, the woman felt a new kind of confidence blooming inside her. She allowed her fingers to explore the keys more freely, trying variations and patterns she had only imagined in her private practice sessions. Each chord, each subtle change in rhythm, carried emotion, telling a story of longing, joy, and discovery. The sound filled the hall, weaving through the listeners' hearts and minds, leaving them captivated. People in the audience were no longer spectators of a playful dare. They were witnesses to a transformation. They leaned forward, silent, their eyes fixed on her, trying to capture every detail of the music and the moment. Some whispered in awe, pointing out the unexpected skill emerging before them. Others simply closed their eyes, letting the notes sink into them, feeling the sincerity of her performance. It was as if the music carried a message beyond words, a truth about hidden potential and courage that resonated with everyone. The woman's mind was fully immersed in the music, and with each note, she felt herself growing stronger. The nervousness that had accompanied her first steps to the piano had faded, replaced by an almost meditative focus. She was not playing for approval or recognition. She was playing for herself and for the moment, allowing the music to express everything she had kept inside. It was liberating, a private joy made public, and the audience felt the purity of her intent as she continued. She noticed the pianist had moved slightly closer, nodding subtly, encouraging her without interruption. His eyes held admiration, and the warmth of his gesture gave her the courage to experiment more. She tried a few higher notes, delicate and tentative at first, then allowed herself to embrace them fully. The melody began to evolve, flowing naturally from one phrase to another, as if the piano itself was guiding her hands. The music was alive, shifting and breathing with the emotions she was channeling. The audience was completely absorbed. They could feel the subtle shifts in tone and tempo, the way her hands danced over the keys with surprising agility. There was no pretense, no unnecessary showmanship, just a genuine connection between the musician and the instrument. Every so often, the hall filled with a soft, collective intake of breath, a small sign of astonishment at her unexpected talent. People were silently acknowledging that this was a rare, precious moment. The woman's playing grew more confident, more expressive. She added a few improvised flourishes, small embellishments that made the piece uniquely hers. The room seemed to respond to each sound, the light, the air, the very energy of the audience blending with her music. There was a magical quality in the interaction between her and the listeners, a silent communication that transcended words. They were sharing her journey, her discovery, and it felt intimate despite the number of people present. The pianist finally stepped closer, allowing a few soft notes to accompany her. He did not lead, but gently harmonized, giving depth to her melody. It was a moment of collaboration, yet the focus remained entirely on her. His presence was reassuring, his subtle guidance enhancing her confidence. She began to feel a sense of partnership, not in the sense of dependence, but in the quiet support that allowed her to soar musically. By now, the music had taken on a life of its own. Her fingers moved faster, yet with precision and clarity. She transitioned smoothly between complex chords and gentle, melodic phrases. Each note seemed deliberate yet effortless, a reflection of her innate understanding of rhythm and tone. She felt exhilarated, realizing that the boundaries she had imagined for herself were no longer real. The piano was not an obstacle. It was a companion, a tool through which her inner voice could finally speak. The audience was spellbound. Some leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes wide with disbelief and admiration. Others sat silently, feeling the music vibrate in their bones. Whispers of awe circulated, but the sound was muted, respectful of the magic unfolding. The playful dare had become a moment of revelation, a testament to hidden talent waiting to be discovered. Everyone felt privileged to witness something so authentic and moving. As the piece reached its peak, the woman allowed herself to fully embrace the music. She poured her energy into the final notes, letting them linger and fade naturally. The silence that followed was profound, as though the room itself was reflecting on what had just transpired. Then, gradually, applause began. It started softly, then grew louder, sweeping through the hall with warmth and sincerity. The sound was more than approval. It was recognition of courage, skill, and the beauty of a moment shared. The pianist approached once more, this time with a broad smile and a look of genuine respect. He complimented her instinct, her emotional expression, and the courage it had taken to step forward. His words were quiet, but their sincerity carried weight. She felt a mixture of pride and humility, realizing that she had exceeded even her own expectations. She had begun with a playful dare and ended with a moment that transformed her own understanding of herself. People continued to applaud, some rising to their feet, some whispering among themselves about the extraordinary turn of events. The woman's quiet, simple demeanor had masked a depth of talent that no one had anticipated. She had surprised everyone, but perhaps most of all, she had surprised herself. The experience had opened a door she hadn't dared to approach before, revealing a potential that had always been present but hidden. As the audience slowly began to leave, the energy in the hall remained vibrant. Conversations buzzed with admiration and inspiration, with many expressing how moved they had been by the performance. The woman remained at the piano for a few moments, letting her hands rest lightly on the keys, savoring the connection she had felt with the music and the listeners. It was a quiet reflection on a moment that had changed her perception of herself and her abilities. The pianist returned to his seat, nodding once more in acknowledgement. He had intended a playful challenge, but what he had witnessed was a revelation of hidden talent and courage. The experience reminded him that true artistry often comes from unexpected places, from people who might never have imagined themselves in the spotlight. His respect for the woman grew, and he silently celebrated the beauty of the music that had emerged in this extraordinary encounter. The woman finally rose from the piano, her steps measured but confident. She had faced the unknown, embraced it, and discovered a new side of herself. The audience had seen it all, and their reaction had been genuine and heartfelt. She left the hall quietly, carrying with her the exhilaration of performance and the knowledge that courage, curiosity, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected could lead to moments of true magic. This experience would stay with her forever, a reminder that sometimes, a small, playful dare can reveal the most profound truths about ourselves and our hidden potential. After the final notes faded and the applause slowly ebbed, the woman sat quietly at the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys. She could still feel the echo of each chord in her fingers and in her chest. The room, which had moments ago been filled with laughter and casual conversation, was now vibrating with admiration and wonder. People were exchanging glances, whispering softly about what they had just witnessed. The simple dare had grown into an extraordinary moment, and everyone in the hall felt it. The pianist approached her, his steps deliberate but soft. His expression had changed from playful amusement to genuine respect. He gestured toward the keys, inviting her to continue if she wished. The woman hesitated for a brief moment, unsure if she should. Her heart was still pounding, but something inside told her that this was her moment to fully embrace the experience. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the audience's attention but also the warmth of their support. She began to play again, softly at first, letting the notes float and settle naturally. The melody was calm and gentle, reflective rather than bold. The audience leaned in, drawn to the quiet confidence in her playing. It was different from the earlier piece. This one was introspective, filled with emotion that spoke of long-hidden feelings and personal stories. Her fingers moved delicately over the keys, expressing a vulnerability that was both moving and powerful. The pianist stepped back slightly, allowing her space to lead. He could see that she was no longer nervous but fully engaged, connected to the music in a way that transcended technique. Her playing was sincere and instinctive, flowing from her heart rather than from any external expectation. It was a rare and beautiful thing to witness, and he could not help but feel a sense of pride and amazement at what had emerged from what had begun as a playful dare. The audience was silent, captivated by the depth of feeling in each note. Some had tears in their eyes, touched by the honesty and purity of the performance. Others held their breath, afraid to disturb the delicate balance of emotion that had settled over the hall. The energy was unlike anything they had experienced earlier in the day. It was not just music. It was a revelation, a glimpse into a soul that had been quietly waiting for this moment. As the piece developed, the woman began to add small variations, subtle embellishments that made the music uniquely hers. She experimented with rhythm and tone, letting her intuition guide her. Each chord was carefully chosen, each pause deliberate. The music seemed to breathe with her, rising and falling like waves, carrying the audience along with it. People felt the sincerity and courage in every note, and they responded not with loud applause, but with quiet, attentive appreciation. The pianist watched closely, learning from her instinctive phrasing and expressive timing. He had played with many musicians, but this was different. There was no pretense, no showmanship. It was raw, genuine, and entirely captivating. He began to gently hum along, adding a subtle harmony that complemented her melody without overshadowing it. This quiet collaboration elevated the piece, creating a moment of connection and mutual respect. The audience, sensing the harmony between the two musicians, felt the magic of collaboration unfolding before them. As she played, the woman's confidence grew further. Her nervousness had completely disappeared, replaced by a sense of freedom and self-expression. She explored the full range of the piano, letting her hands move fluidly from the lowest bass notes to the highest treble. The sound filled the hall with richness and warmth. Each note carried intention and feeling, capturing the essence of her personality and spirit. The audience could sense that this was more than a performance. It was an expression of who she was, unfiltered and authentic. People in the audience began to lean forward, caught up in the intensity and beauty of the moment. They were witnessing a transformation, not just of skill but of presence. The woman had moved from a quiet, unassuming observer to a confident performer capable of touching hearts. The energy in the room was palpable, a shared recognition of something rare and extraordinary. Whispers of admiration circulated quietly, as everyone realized they were seeing a story unfold through music. The woman allowed herself to fully embrace the music, her fingers dancing across the keys with grace and precision. She experimented with tempo, adding subtle crescendos and decrescendos that enhanced the emotional impact. The pianist continued to accompany her softly, guiding without dominating, creating a balance that allowed her voice to shine. It was a perfect blend of encouragement and collaboration, showing that sometimes the most profound moments come when support is gentle and unobtrusive. As the piece reached its emotional peak, the audience was completely absorbed. Every note seemed to resonate within them, stirring feelings they had not expected to encounter. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Others watched intently, taking in every movement of her hands, every nuance of expression. The hall seemed to exist in a space outside time, where the only reality was the music and the emotions it carried. The woman's final notes were delicate, lingering in the air as if reluctant to leave. She let each sound fade naturally, allowing silence to enter the room like a gentle breath. The audience remained still for a moment, savoring the conclusion and reflecting on what they had witnessed. Then slowly applause began. It was soft at first, then gradually grew into a wave of appreciation and admiration. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, moved not just by her skill but by her courage, vulnerability, and authenticity. The pianist approached her again, this time with a radiant smile. He spoke quietly, expressing his admiration for her instinct, creativity, and emotional expression. His words were sincere, carrying the weight of experience and respect. She felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of pride and humility. She had stepped forward on a playful dare and had emerged with something far more valuable, a realization of her own capabilities and a deep connection with the audience. The audience continued to talk among themselves, sharing their amazement and inspiration. Many were reflecting on the journey they had witnessed, how a casual challenge had blossomed into a moment of genuine artistry. The woman quietly stood, taking in the scene, feeling a sense of accomplishment that was both personal and communal. She had faced a moment of uncertainty and turned it into an unforgettable experience for herself and everyone present. As the hall gradually emptied, the energy remained vibrant. People lingered, discussing the performance in hushed tones, clearly affected by what they had seen. The woman stepped away from the piano, carrying with her the knowledge that she had unlocked a new part of herself. The experience had changed her perspective, showing her that courage, curiosity, and openness could lead to discoveries that were both unexpected and extraordinary. The pianist returned to his bench, a look of deep respect and admiration on his face. He had intended a playful moment, but what had emerged was a revelation. The woman's performance reminded him that talent can be hidden in the most unassuming people, and that sometimes, it only takes a little encouragement to reveal it. He silently celebrated the beauty of the music, the courage of the performer, and the shared experience that had transformed an ordinary day into something unforgettable. The woman walked out of the hall quietly, her steps measured but confident. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, her mind replaying every note, every gesture, every moment of connection. She had started the day as an observer and left as a performer, a participant in a story of courage, discovery, and the unexpected joy of embracing opportunity. She knew that this moment would stay with her forever, a reminder that even the smallest acts of bravery could lead to extraordinary experiences and self-discovery. After leaving the music hall, the woman walked along the quiet street outside, still feeling the echo of the piano in her mind and heart. The evening sky was soft and calm, and the cool air carried a sense of freshness that matched her own exhilaration. She felt light, almost as if the courage and music had lifted a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The playful dare that had started the day had become so much more, opening a door to possibilities she had never imagined. As she walked, she reflected on the reactions she had seen in the hall. Faces filled with admiration, whispers of amazement, quiet applause. All of it had been real, sincere, and deeply moving. She realized that what had made the experience so extraordinary was not just her own playing, but the shared energy between her, the pianist, and the audience. That connection, the invisible thread of emotion and presence, was something she had never experienced before, and it felt both humbling and empowering. For years, she had enjoyed music privately. She had played in her room, letting melodies flow when no one was watching. Music had been her companion, a source of comfort, a place to express feelings she couldn't put into words. But until today, she had never imagined bringing that private passion into the public world. The dare had been small, playful, almost accidental, yet it had sparked something transformative. She now understood that hidden courage and talent often need only a small nudge to reveal themselves. The next day, she returned home and found herself thinking about the piano constantly. Every chord, every rhythm, every expression she had discovered in the hall kept replaying in her mind. She realized that the music was no longer just a private refuge. It had become a part of her identity, a source of confidence she had never experienced. She felt inspired to continue exploring her talent, not for applause, not for recognition, but to express herself fully and embrace the joy she had discovered. Word of the performance began to spread quietly at first. People who had been in the hall shared the story with friends and family. They talked about the unassuming woman who had accepted a playful challenge and surprised everyone with her hidden talent. Each retelling added a bit of wonder, a touch of admiration, and soon it became a story about courage, self-discovery, and the beauty of taking risks. The woman found it strange and delightful that something so simple, a dare, had grown into a story that inspired others. In the following days, she continued to play, sometimes alone, sometimes with a few close friends who were curious to hear her perform. Each time, she felt more confident, more expressive. She experimented with different melodies, learned new pieces, and allowed herself to take small creative risks. The piano became not only a tool for expression, but also a way to explore herself, to understand her own emotions, and to share her journey with others in a meaningful way. The pianist occasionally mentioned her performance to colleagues and students, praising her instinct, courage, and emotional depth. He admired the fact that she had stepped forward without seeking attention, without ego, and yet had delivered something profoundly moving. His respect for her grew, and he made it a point to encourage others to recognize and support hidden talent in unexpected places. Her story became a quiet but powerful reminder that true artistry often resides in ordinary people who dare to step into the light. The woman herself noticed changes in how she viewed the world. She no longer hesitated when faced with small challenges. She had learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. The playful dare had been a catalyst, showing her that even small steps could lead to significant transformations. She began to approach other areas of her life with a new sense of openness, embracing opportunities she might have once ignored. Months passed, and the woman's relationship with music deepened. She dedicated time to learning, practicing, and performing privately, finding new pieces that resonated with her emotions and experiences. She felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that had been missing before, a joy that was quiet but steady. Music had become a lens through which she understood herself and the world, a constant companion that offered solace, inspiration, and connection. Occasionally, she returned to the hall where the original dare had taken place. Each visit reminded her of that first step, the mixture of fear and excitement that had led to her discovery. She felt gratitude for the pianist, for the audience, and for herself. That single moment of acceptance had unlocked something permanent within her, a reminder that life often offers unexpected opportunities, and courage allows us to take them. Over time, she shared her story with others who were hesitant to embrace their own talents or take small risks. She spoke quietly but sincerely, explaining how a playful challenge had shown her the depth of her own abilities. People listened, inspired by the idea that ordinary moments could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Her story became a symbol of hope, courage, and the beauty of discovering hidden potential, resonating with anyone who had ever doubted themselves. The woman never sought fame or recognition. The joy she found in music and self-expression was reward enough. Yet, the impact of her actions rippled outward, touching lives in ways she could not have anticipated. Friends, family, and even strangers who heard about her story were inspired to take small steps, embrace their fears, and discover their own hidden talents. The playful dare had become a catalyst not just for her life but for others as well. Years later, she would still remember that moment at the piano with vivid clarity. She remembered the anticipation, the fear, the exhilaration, and the profound connection she felt with the music and the audience. She remembered the pianist's encouraging presence and the way the hall had held its collective breath. That moment had marked the beginning of a journey that was far more significant than any single performance. It had taught her courage, self-discovery, and the joy of embracing opportunity. As she continued to play, her heart was full of gratitude and wonder. She knew that life was full of unexpected chances and that courage often comes disguised as something playful or small. The simple dare had reminded her that hidden potential exists in everyone, waiting for the right moment to emerge. It had shown her that music, talent, and courage are intertwined, creating moments that can inspire, transform, and connect people in ways that words cannot describe. In the quiet of her home, sitting at the piano, she often thought of that day as a turning point. The playful dare, the audience's awe, and the pianist's gentle encouragement had all contributed to a profound awakening within her. She smiled quietly, realizing that she had not only discovered her own talent, but also learned the power of courage, authenticity, and connection. Her life had changed in ways she had never imagined, all because she had taken a small, unexpected step and embraced the unknown. And so, she continued to play, not for recognition, not for applause, but for the love of music, the joy of expression, and the quiet knowledge that sometimes the smallest actions can lead to the most extraordinary discoveries. Her journey, sparked by a playful dare, became a lasting reminder of the beauty of courage, the power of music, and the surprising strength that lies hidden within everyone.